r/AskReddit by Robotainment. Stanley has passed away at 95 years old. As many of you know, today's day that many of us have dreaded. Stanley has passed away at the age of 95. He leaves behind a legacy of superheroes and stories that have touched many people's lives for decades. We wanted to make this thread to honor and remember this wonderful man, so please use it, discuss his life, his work, his cameos, thumbs.com link etc and what they meant to you. Excelsior, the AskReddit mods. Was really hoping he'd get to see Avengers 4, but at least he did get to see and interact with his creations on the big screen. RIP. He filmed his cameos years in advance just for this situation. He'll be in the next 2 for sure. His wife passed away not too long ago too. It must have been lonely to all of a sudden be without his life partner. It's possible to die of a broken heart. I hope he passed peacefully, at least. Seriously, there was a thread in here I was reading earlier on today about who you can't believe is still alive, and someone mentioned Stanley. No freaking way. Reminds me of when that guy on r/no stupid questions killed Stephen Hawking. Not only did this man create an empire that almost everyone loves, but he was a genuine man who just loved to see people smile. I had the pleasure of working under him for some pop culture conventions, and all he wanted was to see fans smile and enjoy his legacy. He loved to joke with those around him, and he would tease the ever-loving hell out of everyone he could. I remember him using his motorized scooter to get around backstage, and his poor assistant would speed walk to keep up with him, but he would just keep increasing the speed until she was running beside him. A wicked grin on his face the whole time. Or how he would constantly make his staff repeat themselves, "What, I didn't hear you," until they had repeated themselves 4 times. Witnessing that initially made me sad, thinking his hearing was poor, until he looks at me with that same grin and winks. My time with him was short, but I'm so glad I got it. This man changed my life before I even met him, and he made a huge impact when I did as well. RIP Stan. Goodbye to a great mind. Between him and Hawking it's been a terrible year. Both changed the world in their own ways. Not to make things much worse, but you apparently missed Steve Ditko passing in June, the other great comic book legend. He was the highest grossing actor of all time, if you include cameos and supporting actors. He beat out Cliff Clavin. Good for him. Mods, can we please bang those "who is still alive" posts? This tragedy could have been avoided. I guess over the next few years we will see how many future cameos were filmed early. It will be nice to still see him and know that there is more to look forward to. I mean, both Captain Marvel and Avengers 4 are in post-production, and Spider-Man Far From Home is mostly filmed. It wouldn't be surprising if they bulk recorded a few 4 movies already in pre-production, which would cover up to 2020, if not to 2023. A friend and I snuck into a premiere party for a movie. That's an r/act like he up a long story on its own. But we spotted Stanley, surrounded by a posse. A lot of pretty girls and some serious handlers. Here we were, just average idiots in a place we weren't supposed to be. We approached, just wanting to say hello and thank him for his work. The handlers were not having any of it, and started to move us along. He stopped the handlers, and said hello to us. I got to shake his hand and thank him. He asked if we had cameras. I was kinda dumbstruck by the moment, and forgot cameras existed. He actually wanted to pose for pictures with us. Still have the photo, and a nice memory of a pretty great guy who was good to his fans. Edit, i.com link. Since I grew up with superheroes and their ideas of morals, protecting the innocent, etc., I feel like it really shaped me morally and gave me an interest in criminology and upholding the law. RIP Stanley. Same here. The man has been a part of my life and a part of what has shaped my concepts of ethics and morality since I was a child in the 1970s. More than a man, an era has passed today. I'll repeat in what I said in another thread, but shortly. He used his platform for selfless purposes, and he always stood up for the minority in the face of bigotry. Captain America fought Nazis. Iron Man was an alcoholic war vet. The X-Men represented those who had been misunderstood and cast out by society and its all too alienating standards. Power Man, a black man whose skin was his power, defended Harlem. Rest in peace Stan Lee. You were awesome. And Spider-Man, who was just that, a man. This sounds pretty stereotypical, but it means a lot to me. I grew up in a family with 2 alcoholic parents and likely abuse-related early onset mental illness. My reality was incredibly bleak from a very young age. One day, I got my hands on an anthology of the original Amazing Spider-Man comics. Every morning and every night, when I got home from school, I cracked open that anthology and read each and every comic again and again and again. Stan Lee gave me a healthy escape to a world where all loose ends tied up nicely, where the bad guys always lost, where I knew I was safe. Rest in peace Mr. Lee. Thank you for everything you've done for me, and the likely tens of thousands like me. I wonder if he already filmed his cameo for Avengers 4, and if they will include it still. Thief filmed a bunch of cameos in front of green screen for a backlog. He could still be in the Marvel movies until 2028. Ike. Avengers 4 has been in post-production for nearly a year at this point. You should really wonder about his cameo in Spider-Man Far From Home. My prediction for what's going to happen in the next movie after he dies is that the post-credit scene will go to the heroes saying we did it, but something's missing. No one will know what. Shrug and move on. Fade to in memory of Stan Lee. I don't think they would edit him out of Avengers 4 at this point, though. I'm 40 plus years of age. When I was growing up, all the Marvel comics I read featured Stan's Soapbox, a short column where he would write about whatever was on his mind. It was like a personal letter every month, and always did such a good job of welcoming all into this little club of misfits and weirdos. Stan is different than most of my heroes in that, when I think of him, I'm always 13 again. The guy created characters that served as father figures for kids who didn't have one in their lives. Provided pillars of morality and courage for many people. Can't imagine how many people battled depression, anxiety and suicidal thoughts by thinking, if Cap can fight in the name of good and the truth, I can make it one more day. Thank you Stan Lee. May you RIP. Stan Lee dying is like David Attenborough or the Queen dying. I refuse to believe it's possible until it is. The year was 2008. I was a high school senior at a college preparation workshop. The instructor presented a quick essay prompt. Write about who you are. Having been amazed and greatly inspired by the very first MCU movie just recently, I pulled off the top of my head, I am Iron Man. This went on to become the basis of my admissions essay, and I owe my choice to pursue a career in engineering to Tony Stark. Thank you Stan Lee. Nice karma farming attempt. Taste my downvote. Stinky power abusing mod. Exactly. This is stinking BS. I don't think mod posts get karma, but yeah, this doesn't really belong here regardless. I know I'm late to this post, but I met him when I was 17. Shook his hand and asked him some questions and had a muffin with him. He is my hero. I didn't have the most active male role models in my life and I used comics to fill that void. I learned more from Spider-Man about responsibilities than anyone. I learned all about racism at a young age through X-Men, and I learned patriotism and to always fight the good fight through Captain America. Of course I learned weird things like don't go through space portals or don't inject yourself with a weird virus as your girlfriend tries to kill you. But most importantly I learned there is others out there like me who also were alone and needed someone. I grew up when it was still lame to be a nerd, and I was bullied for knowing what the circle in Iron Man's chest was. My first fist fight was over Spider-Man. My first memory of my dad is him reading me West Coast Avengers. To Stan Lee, thank you. You helped me grow up and become a much better person than I would have become without you. I owe you so much and it hurts I couldn't give you more than a smile when we met. But he called me a true believer. So to all the other true believers out there, keep believing in yourself and others. I love you all. I'm sitting here in tears. I wish there was a way I could say thank you to Stan and to Marvel. A few years ago I was going through a breakup from an abusive shitbag. I had completely shut down. Was failing out of school, dropped below 100 pounds and a whole lot more as I was coming to terms with everything. I lived next to a boat yard and one day went to jump from the dock. I can't swim. I didn't have the courage to jump. I just sat there crying. I realized I reached rock bottom. That week, my friend persuaded me to go see a movie with her. It was my first introduction to Marvel. I was hooked. Thank you, Stan. I managed to dig myself out of a dangerous hole because your movies were an outlet. Those movies saved me from myself and the self-destructive path I was on. I knew it was going to happen eventually, given how he was going on in his 90s. The man has lived a very fulfilling life. He got to see all of his creations come to life through Marvel Studios. He got to play minor roles in them as well. Spider-Man, Hulk, X-Men, Daredevil, Captain America, Iron Man, Avengers getting together for the first time ever and many more. The man has lived a very creative life and breathed superheroes. Imsad has gone, but in such a large legacy left behind, all of his creative works will live on. Not related to AskReddit at all. Marvel comics were my childhood and even now are a huge part of my adulthood. His amazing stories enthralled me as a kid and continue to inspire me as an adult. Me and my generation will be forever grateful to this man's imagination through the genre of superheroes. He spurred our interest in technology and science, opened our eyes to prejudice and bigotry, and permeated lessons of morality and basic human decency. Stan made it a priority that most Marvel superheroes also show a degree of vulnerability, and also in many cases X-Men, Spider-Man show them doing the right thing and getting absolutely nothing out of it. Peter Parker would still be broke and mutants would still be persecuted against. This truly is a sad day, but given all of the allegations of elder abuse, and glad has at peace now. His legend will live on forever. Rest well, true believer. I got to see Stan at C2E2 a few years ago in Chicago. I thought to myself, go see him, because who knows how many years he has left. Fortunately, it was a few more. During the Q&A section of his panel, a young kid came up and said he was doing a presentation about Stan to his class about Stan's work and life, and he asked for a video intro to the presentation. And Stan could have blown this kid off, but said sure, and the kid had a script and everything. And Stan did the video intro 3 times for the kid, so he would have a good take and a few options. We all sat in the audience silent as he did it, as not to blow the takes too. And I thought, got him. Stan really cares about the fans. I hope that kid got an A+ on this report. It's that kind-heartedness that makes me so happy for everything that Stan gave to the fans. Damn, one last cameo in Endgame made me cry, and hashtag X200B, RIP to a real one. FFS. Earlier today I was on that thread of who are you surprised is still alive, and numerous people mentioned Stan. I hope the children who fought and bickered over his money don't see a dime. Really? 20k comments to one of the greatest comic book writers of all time with F. Call me old school, but that sucks. I'll miss ya, Stan. Spider-Man got me into comics in the early 80s. They became an instrumental part of my childhood. Without you and your writing, I don't think my future would have turned out the way it did. RIP. Years ago, right after Disney bought Marvel, my wife and I were visiting a friend for lunch at the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank. We were walking around, and we saw Stan walking with a bunch of suits. We asked to take a photo, and he was so happy to meet us and take a photo with us. He was warm, kind and inviting. He talked to us while the executives stood there looking at their watches. He was genuinely happy to talk with us and spend that little time with us. 2 years later, we went to STCC and printed that photo. We knew it was a long shot to run into him at STCC, but we would be upset if we missed an opportunity. We found a booth that was hosting Stan. They had Spider-Man guitars, and if you bought one, Stan would sign them. We get there and there is this huge crowd. Stan comes and starts signing. My wife and I take out the photo in the middle of the crowd and hold it up high. After 10 minutes or so of signing, surrounded by people holding comics up to get him to sign, he spots our photo. He smiles and waves, then leans over to one of the booth employees and says something to him. The guy comes through the crowd and asks my wife to follow him. She walks all the way up to Stan, and he talks with her for a minute or two and signs the photo. His mannerisms were so different toward my wife than they were to the people getting the guitars, because this was something that was special to us. It has no monetary value. Imgur.com link. My parents decided to tell me today they're getting a divorce. Sim 15 and Stan Lee has always inspired me and let me live the lives I wish I could through all of his stories and movies. Now that will mean so much more to me. This is the worst day of my life. Major F edit. Thanks everyone for all the kindness. I always loved superheroes, and my childhood was filled with Marvel. Spider-Man was always my favorite because I was a weird kid and found spiders fascinating. I loved him more as I grew up because there were so many similarities. Raised in poor families beset by financial troubles. Quick with jokes to cover insecurities. A deep love of science that shaped everything I did. The implicit knowledge that I may not be the strongest, or the toughest, or the most resilient, but that I always had to stand back up. Intellectually gifted, and, with it, a compulsory, driving need to use that to help people. It's why I became a scientist researching psychiatric illnesses, and then later Alzheimer's disease, because I recognized that I had a gift, and so I had a responsibility. Spider-Man is paper and ink, but he is an ideal I always have, and always will, aspire to. He is my hero, and the man who helped give me that ideal, who shaped so much of my childhood and identity, has died, and the world is a sadder place. Thank you, Stan Lee. Thank you for your heroes and your dreams. Thank you for helping shape me into the person I am. Excelsior. Gonna have to unsub for posting unrelated content. I remember his wife bursting out during an interview about how he would write poetry to her daily. She expressed how good a husband and friend he was to her, and I feel it important to not overlook that. I'll miss him. He encouraged creativity in his fans, and to my knowledge never judged anyone over a dislike of their creativity. He was just a darn good dude and I'm happy we had him, as long as we did. Thank you. The mod who posted this literally did it for karma. Off. This is not relevant to this subreddit at all. You die twice, once when your heart stops, and the second when someone says your name for the last time. Stan Lee will never die, and will always be a beacon for what it means to be a real life superhero. F. You know, I'm not that sad. He did such a massive amount of work, and his legacy will live on for decades, maybe centuries. In fact, once we leave this planet through extinction or intergalactic travel, I'd bet on aliens coming here and finding relics of the heroes he created. Maybe they'll believe they're true, if only briefly, and now, after nearly a century of work, he can later rest, remembered for the legends he created, and the legend he was. According to my footlocker full of old Marvel comics that I refuse to throw away despite my girlfriend's protests, Stan Lee was the fucking man. His artistic/business prowess in life ensures he'll continue to touch many young people's lives for years to come. Thanks, Stan. My first SD Comic-Con, I ran into him kinda. He was being escorted outdoors, along the main glass hallway where all the talks were happening. It was so hot, and he was wearing his signature yellow sweater vest and keeping pace with his assistants. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was just hanging outside, and there he was, steady as he goes. I yelled at him the only thing I could. I love you, Stan. I didn't expect him to hear me, since there was a good amount of distance between us, and he was hurrying to his panel, The Amazing Stan Lee. But no, with double barrel fingers towards me, not missing a beat, that firm, unmistakable Stan voice we all have grown accustomed to all these years. I hear, love you too. Many years later, me and 3 friends go for a group photo. There was a kid before us, and Stan made sure to take time with the young boy and not let the photographs rush their moment. Once our photo was taken, I noticed how smaller he was now. Not weak, but small like my own grandma. Instead of thanking him, I just told him I loved him. He didn't hear me, but it didn't matter. Out of all the stories and heroes and villains he gave us, Stan was the truest hero and champion of our hearts and imaginations. Stan was the man. He never let us down, and in his memory we should try to be like Stan. Ever moving, bending, steadfast, and fighting for the future for ourselves and others in ways that we can. Edit. Last thoughts. I might be downvoted to hell for this, but please stop posting F. People. I understand and respect that many people have been affected by Stan Lee, but if you want to say or leave something respectful about him, even in an online thread like Reddit, there's better ways to do it. The main reason F became a meme is because of how jarring it is, and how it simplifies the act of paying respects to someone to an arbitrary letter. I and hopefully others would be much happier seeing actual respects to the man's legacy by Redditors posting their enjoyment of his comics, works and other related content Stan Lee produced. You know it's funny. Stan Lee was a person who brought people together. He wasn't just some comic book writer, he was the comic book writer. IDC if you were a jock, nerd, goth, prep. Every one single person knew his name and loved him for what he was able to accomplish in his very long, very successful life. 95 years old, still acting, still being able to do the things he did with as clear of a mind as his. Today is a day that we lost not only a very loved person, but today we lost the greatest comic book hero ever to live. My grandpa died today as well. So in a way I feel that they may rest together, and that's really sweet to me. Late diagnosed dyslexia and attention deficit disorder meant I cold read at the age of 8. That is until my mum bought me a stack of Marvel comics. Stan is my hero, because if it wasn't for him, I would be illiterate. My biggest regret in life is that when I met the man I froze and couldn't tell him this. I now teach English. They should make Stan Lee's birthday a national holiday. I'm for sure gonna ugly cry when I see his cameo in Avengers 4. Stan Lee forever changed the movie industry and the lives of millions of people. He made it cool to be a comic book nerd. The heroes I've always looked up to are now household names. I'll never forget when I saw Iron Man in theaters for the first time. I went with my mom and my younger brother. I was wearing a Stark Industries shirt we bought the day before. When Tony Stark was being tortured, my mom made us leave the theater and see a more age-appropriate movie, Kung Fu Panda. I said I had to go to the bathroom and snuck back in to watch the rest of Iron Man. My mom was pissed and I got grounded, but I didn't regret it then, and I never will. Thank you Stan for all the memories. You will be missed. I literally had no friends growing up outside of the ones in my comics. The X-Men were different, so it was okay that I was different. The Hulk was angry and wanted to be alone, so it was okay that I did too. Spidey always tried to do the right thing, even when it bit him in the ass, so that's what I try to do too. I'll press it once, because I'm supposed to, but only because I don't actually have an appropriate way to tell anyone how important his work actually was to me. Can we all take a moment to remember and pay respects to the awesome people we lost in 2018? Among these people were, and #X200B, Stephen Carroll forever #1. Anthony Bourdain, thanks for the fun adventures. Stanley, a true superhero. John McCain, thank you for your service. Stephen Hawking, amazing physicist, amazing person, and #X200B, rest in peace 3. I had a thought today that made me feel better about this. First of all, he lived a long life, 95 years. And in that time, he not only created many of the characters we know and love today, but he helped turn comics from a niche hobby for nerds at a time when that was a bad thing to be, to arguably the most mainstream media in entertainment today. He got to see his characters truly become household names. He had a lot to be proud of, and I think he was proud. Pour one out for the cameo master, better than Hitchcock, the storyteller, and the world builder. R.I.P. Stan. I can't find any comment that doesn't say F, so I'll make one. Stanley was the most amazing person ever. When I met him at Supernova Convention, he had this aura of, let's just say inspiration, because I can't think of the word. He seemed to still have the energy of his prime, even though he was 94 at the time. I can't think of anything else to say, but I might come back and edit this later. Rest in peace to one of the most inspirational people I ever had the chance to meet. Excelsior. Stan Lee gave me escape from my shitty childhood. He gave me friends when I was alone. He made me smile when I had nothing else to bring me joy. Thank you so much, Stan Lee. Excelsior. I knew when Stan Lee died it would be a media frenzy and covered like crazy. Posts here would get 60,000 upvotes, etc. Yet the artists who are the actual creators and responsible for it all barely get any attention. Steve Ditko dies and there's hardly any coverage, barely anything on Reddit. But that's to be expected. Since the mid-60s, Stan has done everything to make himself a celebrity and market himself to death, and it worked. Sure, Stan was a good comic writer and editor. He knew the business and what would sell and what wouldn't. For decades he wrote every kind of comics imaginable. Humor, romance, war, teen, cartoon character, superhero, everything. But his celebrity and marketing of himself honestly has always made me sick, and more so how everyone seems to eat it up, and Ditko, Kirby, Everett, and the countless other artists who were the real reason those comics were popular are buried under Lee's self-promoting marketing machine, especially since he hardly wrote or did a thing since the early 70s, and his job was just being a celebrity since then. Mr. Lee, thank you for being my escape from reality. I remember watching X-Men cartoons when I was little and being so fascinated by it. Then I started buying the comics, watched the movies, and now it's a big part of who I am. A quote you said about X-Men was, "I wanted them to be different." The whole underlying principle of the X-Men was to try to be an anti-bigotry story, to show there's good in every person. You made me believe that hope. The world won't be the same without your incredible presence. Rest in peace and love. God damn it, it's been 5 months and I'm still not over it once I see a post about him passing away. Why is this on /r/AskReddit? FFF, FF, 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 FF. It would be so charming if all the actors would get together and film like a 10-minute mini movie where all the characters attend his memorial and pay respects. Stan Lee and those he worked with created the new American mythology that most of us grew up on. We may have known about the Greek and Roman myths, but those weren't the heroes we identified with, the ones we knew the origin stories to. He created the heroes we indulged ourselves in, imagining ourselves in their roles. Stan Lee helped many of us see that even a nerdy kid in high school could get bitten by a radioactive spider, not die from radiation poisoning, and take on great responsibility. Or that a group of mutant freaks could walk around in blue and yellow spandex, shoot lasers from behind their ruby glasses, and still be heroes. Or that a pansy weakling could get injected with a super serum and beat the shit out of Nazis. He crafted so many amazing tales and had such a great heart. It's the saddest I've ever felt for somebody that I've never met, but who felt like someone that would always be there. Stan the Man Lee was the crown jewel of this earth, if you ask me. So happy, so creative, so outgoing, so accomplished, such a wonderful, influential, inspirational guy. Marvel Comics, and by extension, pop culture, are his baby. I physically can't imagine a world untouched by his artistic hands, nor can I appreciate this one the same way, now that has not in it. Entire generations have come and gone with Marvel, and each and every fanboy and fangirl owes at least something to him. All of his characters, his fictional families, all of his stories will go down as legends, if they already haven't, that is. Has been in just about every summer blockbuster this last decade worth caring about, and neither comics or cinema will be the same with the reverberating memory of his passing looming over us. I think we all know it was bound to happen at some point, let's not kid around, but nonetheless I wish he'd at least lived to see Avengers 4 or even to see the people's reaction to just the title alone. He deserved more than this world had to offer, and he'll always be remembered as the best of the best. Excelsior. Don't really know how to respond to this question. That's not a question. He has a legendary legacy that will live on forever. Damn, I really wanted him to make it to 100. For those of you that don't know, pressing F in Call of Duty lets you pay respects. Rest in peace Stan Lee, F. He was born in 1922. Ottoman Empire exited until 1922. They also just finished building the Lincoln Memorial in 1922. Weimar Republic, British Empire. All those were still a thing back in 1922. Living to the age of 95. Having a hugely successful career and all. Sounds like he had a great life. Stan Lee was an amazing man whose works will live on far beyond his death. He created Spider-Man, the Hulk, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and many more characters who will continue to inspire people who are not yet born for decades. He kept going through war, poverty, sadness, and grief. He deserves far more memorial than the laziness of an F. Seriously, you guys might as well be typing, like to get Stan Lee into heaven, share to join him there. I was a young gay kid that was bullied all the time. The world of comic books were an escape for me. Many days sitting alone and escaping to the works of Stan Lee. I remember reading a Hulk comic where the Hulk didn't care that a character was HIV positive and saved him when no one else would. Thanks Stan Lee, the characters you created were my friends and heroes when I had none. Honestly, a large adult male in his 40s, almost broke when his cameo came up in Spider-Verse, especially because of why his character shows up and what he says heroic sacrifices are a weakness of mine. Stan Lee's creativity was inspirational to me for as long as I can remember. The characters and stories that he had a part in bringing to life have helped in the creation of some of my favorite memories and relationships. He was able to live a long prosperous life from what it seemed, and I can only hope that his final moments were painless. If I had to guess, I would think that he is enjoying himself up in the cosmos. Excelsior, and thank you for everything you did, Stan. Without the characters he created, I wouldn't be here today seeing Tony Stark, a character who made mistakes and grew from them, used snark to hide his problems, but still had people who helped and loved him, who was still a hero despite his flaws. It gave me the courage I needed to reach out and get help. The heroes Mr. Lee created or helped create helped me feel strong when I couldn't feel much at all, and I will be forever grateful because they saved my life. Excelsior, Mr. Lee, Excelsior. He was a guest at my state's comic convention a couple years back. Unfortunately, due to his health, he was unable to attend. However, that didn't stop him from attending his panel. He set up a Skype call to the convention from his hotel room. He was able to answer fans' questions and had a smile on his face the whole time. How many celebrities do that? Not many. Stan truly was remarkable. When I was working at Home Shopping Network back in 2001, we were not allowed to interact with the guests when they came in to sell their products on live TV. After Stan was finished with his on-air segment selling comics, he walked by my row in the call center, and all I and my coworkers could do is wave. Lo and behold, he came our way to meet us and shake our hands. He was truly a down-to-earth, humble guy. He could have kept walking and ignore us, but he didn't. Took a quick picture with him. I.com link, edit, grammar. When I was very young, my grandfather used to babysit me while my mother would work. My grandfather was a German refugee after World War II and was a young teenager in the 60s. He faced a lot of racism because a lot of the other kids' parents had just come back from fighting the Germans. But in the 60s, when he felt he had no friends, he stumbled upon Marvel Comics. They helped make him feel normal. He could identify with Peter Parker being a dorky daggy teenage kid, or the Thing having rocks for skin. He collected and read all of the first issues and series. Now fast forward 40 years, when my grandfather would babysit me, he'd take me to our local comic book shop, buy me a comic and read it to me. When we got home, my grandfather introduced me to a universe that he loved, that Stan Lee created. Marvel superheroes have a very special place in my heart, from a special place of my childhood. Keep moving forward, and if it's time to go, it's time. Nothing lasts forever. Stan Lee, a life well lived. I know the cool thing to do on this thread is to just press F, but I feel like I need to say more. Stan Lee was the coolest nerd who ever lived, and likely the coolest nerd who ever will live. Stan Lee inspired me as both a writer and an artist, and I likely wouldn't be who I'm today if it wasn't for his work. Excelsior. Stan Lee meant a lot to me growing up well into my young adulthood. I learned of the Marvel Universe from my older brothers and continued to nurture my love of superheroes. I always believed that no matter how shitty this world was, the Marvel Universe was a source of solace. I lived for conventions, and I got to finally meet him at one of the first comic-hazes in LA back in 2012. What got me was, even at his age, he still wanted to see the joy his creations had given us. Many others wouldn't have taken the time, and it was worth the wait. I teared up a bit hearing about his passing, and I know a lot of my friends are deeply feeling it as well. I only hope he's with his wife now, and he went knowing just how much his work changed us all. Excelsior, Mr. Lee. Go in peace, you wonderful man. Not all heroes wear capes is usually reserved for people who save lives while risking their own, which is obviously top of the list. But people like Stan touched the lives of millions and helped so many through tough times in their lives. A true hero and a true legend. Rest in peace. For all those folks out there that like me didn't know F is a reference from Call of Duty Advanced Warfare when you are asked to press F to pay respects. So F. Stan, the heroes you imagined may have been only that, but you used them to make the world a better place for so many people. We miss you already. Godspeed, and thank you. This is really sad news, but does anyone know what's up with the spam of F comments? There's so many it seems like bot spam, and of the handful of accounts I checked most of them had no activity aside from this post, while being at least 6 months old. Edit. I've known the reference, I was just curious if another subreddit was telling people to come here. The saddest thing about this is hearing the news of those closest to him trying to extort/coerce money from him. I didn't read too much of it, but it's always disappointing to hear regardless. 0.95 is a grand age, but has also left a lasting impact on comics, TV, and film. Couldn't have asked for better really. Thanks Stan. One day, when I was a kid, my brother and I walked down the road to the nearest gas station to buy some candy. That's where I saw Wizard magazine #34 for the first time, which featured on its cover an illustration of Rogue and Psylocke of the X-Men. I was somewhat familiar with Batman, Spider-Man, and Superman, but I really didn't know of any female superheroes aside from Wonder Woman, who frankly seemed pretty lame to me as a kid at that time. I bought the magazine, and for months, it was an obsession for me. I read it over and over again. I started buying comic books, drawing characters, reading the stories out loud in the voices I imagined each character to have, dreaming up new powers, and imagining new worlds. What I loved about the Marvel universe was that there was room for everybody, men, women, people of different races, nationalities, ages, abilities, and backgrounds. It made me feel like comic books were something that everyone could enjoy. I shared my love for comic books with my brother. Although he struggled in school and teachers couldn't get him to focus, he would pay attention when I read the Uncanny X-Men to him, and when he finally learned to read, it was because of comic books. Thanks to Stan Lee for showing us that anyone can be a hero. RIP. Stan Lee was a cool guy. He used to come to my elementary school every year during the book fair, and I still have no clue why my Midwest school was so special, but I know kindergarten till 6th grade he came for one day, and I met him every time. He taught me through his stories/characters to be me, to not worry what anyone thinks about me. Stan Lee taught me that being yourself is better than being no one, that being yourself is what makes a hero a hero. I never met him, but I lost a father today. Stan deserves a funeral procession down the entire length of Madison Avenue, New York, lying in honor in the back of Thor's chariot, escorted by Spider-Man and all of his characters. For his singular impact on global culture, the entire city should shut down. Excelsior. He made my imagination soar. I roamed the galaxy with the Silver Surfer, challenged the gods with Thor, explored the seas with Namor, and felt the loneliness and isolation of the Hulk, and #X200B. My dad, who's past 60 now, grew up reading Stan's comics, and I grew up like many children with a Spider-Man obsession. I remember pretending to be sick, so I could stay home and watch my animated Spider-Man VHS that I got for Christmas. I'd watched it 1,000 times, but it was still so worth it to put my head against the radiator, to simulate a fever just to vicariously experience that feeling of heroism and fantasy. And I'd cough whenever my mum came in to check on me. It's just incredible the sheer quantity of dreams which passed from this man's imagination into the hearts and lives of children and their parents and their grandparents. In a very cynical age, his creations continue to inspire and capture the greatest parts of the imagination. I can't count how many times I have laid in bed at night and pictured myself alongside his characters. What a magnificent legacy. Excelsior, Stan. It made me sick how much karma grinding was going on over the legend's dead body. I know I'm late to it, but Stan Lee will always be in my heart, god damn it. Stan Lee didn't invent the iconic superhero, but he did reinvent it. Stan Lee turned flat, predictable two-dimensional characters and reinvented them, and the world they inhabited. Suddenly, heroes were complex. They had strengths, weaknesses, and flaws, and their world had nuance and shades of grey among the black and white. Often, their world reflected ours in not so wonderful ways, causing us to reflect on ourselves. Stan Lee is a true American icon, and he inspired me with his comics and ideas, and as a kid, helped me to feel a little less alone, even as the genre itself was struggling. The most rewarding part about the recent Marvel movies was watching his ideas come to life, and that's been a joy. Thanks for the stories, old friend. As a lot of other people are saying, he taught me it was okay to be different through his various characters. He was truly someone who had the ability to influence people in a great way, and that he did. I'm so glad that he could live to see and even partake in throughout his various cameos his dreams become a reality. I did not know that I could be so affected by someone I never had the honor of meeting in life. Today for me was filled with tears, but I hope tomorrow will be for remembering the legacy of the great Stan Lee. Excelsior, true believers. F. If it wasn't for his comics, I never would have picked up a pencil, found art, fallen in love with drawing, gone to art school, which led me to photography, which led me to starting my own business. He also introduced hard concepts to my young adult self, taught me the love of reading and imagination. His comics changed my life. When I saw the notification that he died, I was crushed. Stan Lee and his creations have brought me so many happy memories and moments, especially with my father. We watched every Marvel movie together. If we couldn't go see it in theaters, we would try to catch a recording of it when it was on TV. For example, when Doctor Strange first came out, my father and I didn't get a chance to see it. And even when it hit Netflix, I refused to watch it until my dad and I could make time to watch it. We would always discuss the movies when we were done, giving our opinions of the movie and talking about what the next movie would hold in store. But the one thing we loved to do was try to find Stan Lee in the movie. We would point him out, usually grinning at whatever little one-liner he had. I'm gonna miss Stan Lee, as will many others. Has been a huge part of my relationship with my father, and he greatly influenced my childhood. I will never forget you, Stan Lee. Rest in peace. Dear Mr. Lee, thanks for making my childhood and ultimately my entire life extraordinary. I hope in your final moments you were comforted by all that made you happy. I'm sorry if thin rumors were true and your last months were fraught with pain and discomfort and drama and you'd stealing blood and shit. I hope those responsible meet karmic retribution. We shoulder protected you better. Our love of you got twisted by those souls. I hope up there you can forgive them and us, maybe whatever god there might be may see fit to let you make another wonderland we can all see someday. I didn't know this sub was called r/tell-reddit. Man, I love Spider-Man because of him. Being 25, I really enjoyed Spider-Man 2, 2004 as that's one of my all-time favorite movies. I loved both Spider-Man games on PS1 along with Spider-Man 2 on PS2. Played those games for hours upon hours growing up. R.I.P. Stan Lee. This may have already been said, but I think someone out there should draw the great character of comics be his Palbaras in a one-off print. The casket of Stan Lee being carried by Spawn Image Comics, Batman/Superman DC Comics, Captain America, Spider-Man, Iron Man Marvel. Of course that's my 6, but you can say that wouldn't be a dope picture. It's the one time everyone in comics could come together to celebrate the life of a great man. I don't feel so good. But in all seriousness, he has had a big part in shaping me and so many other people with his work and the whole universe he created. And what a beautiful and big heart Stan must have had as well. It seems he really knew the meaning of love. He really did create a beautiful life for himself as well together with his wife. They even lived through losing a child few days after delivery and pushed through it together, and her support and love is the reason Stan didn't quit writing when he was depressed, so she is also the reason why we have the characters we love today. A lot of people nowadays give up on loved ones in those situations and don't value what is really important in life. It genuinely looks like they were not only lovers, but partners and best friends to each other. It's heartwarming to know that unconditional true love like this exists. Not many people these days who will one day get at the end of the rope can say that they have been married for 69 years. Truly beautiful love story they had. He must have really missed her in this past year. What I'm trying to say is that he did not only shape me with the world he created, but he also inspires me with his passion, hard work and the way he lived his life. He had a long and marvelous life and he will always live on in us and in future generations to come. I will truly miss you, Stan Lee. Just going to say, if you continue further it's just effing some people's experiences. A great and influential man that will truly be missed. I met him twice at a convention and he seemed to be incredibly and genuinely interested in his fans. My thoughts and prayers are with his family and close friends in this trying time. He got to see his work in the grandest cinematic universe ever made and participate in the universe he created all those years ago. I'd say he wasn't too disappointed. It was a good time to go all the way on top. R.I.P. Stan Lee. His comics changed my life. The Marvel movies on the big screen have been a dream come true for me. I can only imagine the joy he felt seeing his characters on the big screen, being able to entertain billions of people for years to come. Rest in peace, Stan, and thank you for the world you created. Like and subscribe for good luck, you handsome gentleman.